What's up everybody, welcome back to a brand new video on Lexalexus. We're carrying on with our score predictions for week 7. As always guys, make sure you leave your score predictions in the comments down below so you guys can get involved to score some points on the Lexalexus Football Prediction League. And I always like seeing your thoughts as well on the championship games in the comments as well. 12 more games to predict. We've also got our first set of midweek games next week, so keep your eyes out to potentially Sunday or Monday. That will be when I'll be posting my midweek predictions, and I can safely say from that moment onwards, certainly the franticness of the championship really does return from that moment onwards. But guys, like what you see, please smash the like button. It really does help the growth of this channel. Please do hit the subscribe button. We're kind of struggling at the moment growing the channel, which kind of is my fault, but please do encourage support for the channel by sharing it as well, subscribing and liking. They're all free to do, and they all really help. Without any further ado, let's start predicting week 7 for the championship. With tomorrow's game with Plymouth going up against Luton Town, both sides with contrasting results from their last weekend affairs. Plymouth obviously in their last home game picked up their first home win of the season and their first win full stop by beating Sunderland by 3-2. It was a manic game. Their previous game against West Brom, I think it was pretty predictable that they were going to be well, I mean, they were favourites to be in the losing side, and they only lost by 1-0, but it certainly was a game where did hold their own, but West Brom didn't really need to be amazing to get a result. Luton certainly impressed me. They got their first home win of the season by getting a 2-1 victory over Sheffield Wednesday, and it was certainly a battling game actually, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I did watch a game because I was away, but I think Sheffield Wednesday took the lead, and it was Luton Town hit back and completed the comeback. So that is really good character on their part that they were able to do that. And I do think now with back-to-back wins, which they've secured for the first time this season, I do get that feeling that Luton are now going to slowly creep up the table and starting to really try and do catch up, because they're 3 points off 7th place Swansea at the moment. But certainly if they do pick up a couple of consecutive wins, suddenly they are now not looking in the precarious position as they were. Plymouth certainly want to be trying to keep away from the bottom 3. They'd be quite fortunate in a way that teams down there have not really been getting their seasons going, and Plymouth could arguably be one of those sides. But certainly performances have improved, but I'm certainly struggling to see the longevity of those performances. And as a prediction, it's tough. I'm going to go Luton to squeak a 2-1 away win. I'm being aware that home park has been a very difficult place for teams to go to. We saw that with Sunderland already, of course. But I do think Luton will have enough to get a result. But I do think it will be an interesting game. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now I have our 3 12:30 kickoffs. So we're going to start things off with Blackburn going up against QPR. So both Blackburn and Queen's Park Rangers picked up a draw in their last game over the weekend, and both I think certainly would have wanted to have a different result from it. Blackburn, of course, played against Preston in a local Lancashire derby. Didn't look particularly spectacular in that game, but they were really dogged with their defending, and they did make sure that they secured that clean sheet in the end. It was really a bit of a feisty game, as we saw. With QPR, they were at home, and they only managed a draw against Millwall. So I do think Millwall and QPR both have been certainly picking up points which I don't actually think have been necessarily reflective of their performances. QPR's part, they've actually gone on an unbeaten run of 5 games, but they've drawn 4 of those 5 games. So I'm finding there's a bit of an issue with QPR that they're drawing way too many games and not winning enough. Blackburn still unbeaten, one of the very few unbeaten sides left in the championship, of course. With this game here, it does feel like that it could point towards a draw, considering how many draws QPR have already accumulated this season. But Blackburn seem to have an edge about them, and I think certainly with their home games, they've really been proving that they are really, really strong and can score plenty of goals. It's just a question whether if QPR can provide a response. And as a prediction, therefore, I think Blackburn might win this, you know. I'm going to go for 2-1 victory to Blackburn. I think it's going to be pretty close again, but I do see Blackburn slightly edging it, and that will continue their amazing start to the season. Let me know what you think in the comments. This game to predict is Derby going up against Norwich, and I've got to say, both of these sides are not separated by a lot in the Championship table as of now, and I've been impressed with both of them in their own right. So Derby are going off the back with a defeat against Sheffield United, but again, I actually think a bit similar to the West Brom Plymouth game, whilst Sheffield United and West Brom didn't really go up the gears that much. I do think both Derby and Plymouth actually made it difficult, and I think if their styles make things difficult, they're certainly going in the right direction in terms of the away game point of view. Derby could therefore agree, actually, that their home form has been sensational. They have won every single home championship game so far, and have continued that really strong home record that I had in League One. Norwich are certainly a team who are improving as a whole. They've now got 8 points within the table and were sensational actually in their last game against Watford with a 4-1 victory, their first home win of the season. Now, with their away games, they've been a little bit more patchy. They did have a recent away win against Coventry, but then that followed with an away defeat against Swansea. So I am a bit puzzled about what sort of performance we could get. Derby, it would seem a little bit unlikely that they would discontinue their fantastic home, but do you think the individuals Norwich have just makes this so difficult to predict? As a prediction, I am really tempted to back Derby again, but I'm going to cowardly say that it will end as a 1-1 draw. Reason being is that I just think Derby could offer quite a bit, but I just think as a goal threat, I think Norwich just have that something extra. I think that might carry them across. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up, we've got Sheffield Wednesday versus West Brom. So this is the last one of the half 12 games. Sheffield Wednesday currently sitting in the bottom three. And it's a difficult situation for Sheffield Wednesday because I don't think the performances have been terrible per se, but they certainly aren't picking up enough points in the games that they're playing at the moment. And right now, it was a difficult one against Luton. I thought played pretty well for most of it, but again, just from a period of the game where they just lose that control, it punishes them and it puts them in the bottom three. And they're facing top of the league West Brom. That's certainly not the team that they would want to be facing at this moment. And I've got to say, West Brom as a whole have actually been, I think, the best balanced side in terms of an attack and defense point of view. I've been impressed for both of those areas in separate games and separate occasions this season. So I do think West Brom, if things get click and they can keep this form going, they really can have the full package to try get promoted back to the Premier League, which I think they're certainly long overdue a return. They've been in the Championship for a good couple of years now. I mean, do you think this game is going to be quite interesting to see if Sheffield Wednesday pick up a result at home? Because I do think their performances at home have been so much better than their away performances. But against West Brom, who are just scoring so many goals at the moment, Josh Marger having an incredible season, Alex Moa playing a big part as well, I'm going to go for a 3-1 away victory to West Brom. I think they could comfortably get something from this game in the end, but I do think Sheffield Wednesday could offer something, just won't be enough to get a point. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up is Hull versus Cardiff. We're now into the 3 o'clock kickoffs. Certainly a game that I was quite concerned with in terms of a couple of weeks ago, but Hull City, I've got to give them their credit. They picked up their first win of the season last weekend against Stoke City. So I was quite pleased, and actually they were pretty horrific first half. The second half, it completely turned around for the better. I think Liam Miller was a really, really big impact when he was introduced in the second half, and other players that were brought on just had a really big impact on this whole side. So it's one of those squads which I still am a bit concerned with the lack of quality and depth, But certainly, if the manager can play his cards right and just offer the right mix of players on the pitch, they can certainly have a good time. That can certainly not be said with Cardiff at the moment, who are shot with confidence. They have dismissed Errol Balut in the end after Cardiff losing 2-0 to Leeds United. Certainly not a terrible result, but the manner of how the defeat managed to materialise and their entire season so far has not been great, with 1 point in their opening 6 games. Certainly, they need improvement now, because if they do not get it in their next couple of games, especially when the midweek start creeping in, ultimately less and less games are there and less opportunities they have in picking up points and more of a gap they have to close. So Cardiff need to pick up these wins as soon as possible. But here, I think Hull could certainly go for back-to-back wins here, and it could really kickstart the season. Cardiff could have maybe a honeymoon period without Errol Balut, but I do think Hull will win this one. I'm going to go for a 2-1 home victory to Hull. I'm a bit more confident with them. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up is Leeds going up against Coventry. Now, this certainly, if you looked at this game last year, would be a fierce game. Leeds really trying to gun for promotion. Coventry trying to go for top 6. This is certainly not the story this season. Coventry have not started well enough at all. It's certainly raised a couple of questions whether maybe Mark Robins is run his time or if it's the players not giving enough. It's certainly hard to point the finger when there is such a contrast to what has happened from previous seasons to now, but I do think investments, transfers, but then also players leaving and influential players leaving as well do create this void that Coventry are going through at the moment, where I think their midfield has certainly taken a bit of a knock in quality, and certainly losing that control midfield is really going to ultimately put more pressure on the attacking players to be more clinical and the defenders to be a lot more busier with their defensive work as well. So ultimately, that I think is the problem areas that Coventry have. Leeds have been chugging away. You know, they've not actually had, I feel, a lot of eyes on their form at the moment, which, to be fair, I think suits them at the moment for the fact they're not running away with the league at this moment of time. I think if they were, certainly pressure would be on, but they're sort of still within the background, you know, wanting to pounce when the top teams will start dropping points, which at the moment they're not dropping a lot at the moment. You know, we saw a glimpse of it of Sunderland losing last weekend, but then Leeds themselves didn't win when Burnley beat them. So ultimately, we're going to have twists and turns, but I certainly think Leeds will look at this game, probably feel a bit more confident, despite not beating Coventry last season. I do think they'll beat them this time. I think Coventry are in a bit of a tough place in the moment, and I think Leeds certainly are going to be a lot more prepared. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Leeds. Certainly will not be a straightforward game, but I think Leeds will do enough to win. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up is Middlesbrough going up against Stoke City. So for Stoke City and Pelach, it was certainly not the start that he would have wanted as Stoke's new manager or coach. It was a bad one. They did all right, I felt, within the first half, but second half they did not handle Hull's change of personnel well enough at all. Casey Palmer as well actually was a player I was supposed to give a shout out for Hull. He had a brilliant game as well. Stoke certainly showed their threat in set pieces, which is how they got their goal against Hull, but ultimately defensively do look a little bit vulnerable. So I do see Middlesbrough having many opportunities, and Middlesbrough have created the most chances out of any team in the league, but are only sitting in 13th position. So they've only picked up 2 wins, 2 draws and 2 defeats, and with their form being quite inconsistent, what has been very clear about Middlesbrough this season, despite creating the most chances, they've also been the most wasteful. Now, certainly in this game here, I think it will open up quite a bit. I am quite intrigued to see if Pelak could get a bit of a reaction from the Stoke side, but for me, I do back Middlesbrough to get something here with the options they got. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to Middlesbrough, simply because I think their squad is a little bit more settled, and I think it will certainly just give out a little bit more. But let me know what you think in the comments. Next up is Millwall versus Preston. 2 teams lingering around the bottom 6 of the championship and have not really picked up too many points in between themselves as well, with Millwall only scoring 5 points and Preston only scoring 5 as well, actually. So they're currently tied on points, but certainly as goal difference goes, Preston are a lot lower down due to the fact they've conceded way more goals at the start of the season. One thing that Heckingbottom has done, I think it has made Preston a little bit more defensive, frustrating to break down, as Blackburn saw in their last game. Millwall, I actually think, have been performing relatively well, but they've just not picked up the points that I think they've entirely deserved. But certainly with their last game, they did take the lead against QPR as well. Duncan Woodmore having a brilliant season, by the way. But again, just conceding one too many chances and then ultimately just not finding the killer instinct. And we have seen that killer instinct with Millwall before at home against Sheffield Wednesday, I think it was, when they've been above 3-0. So we can see it, but it's just whether if they'll be clinical or wasteful with their chances. Preston, I'm a little bit less confident of them picking up a result here. I don't think they're scoring frequently enough. I think defensively they'll make things interesting, and therefore I do think this game will be low scoring. But as a prediction, I'm going to back Millwall for a 1-0 win. With them being at home at the Den, I think it could give them a small advantage here. I think if they do take that chance, I will actually back them to defend it, since Preston, to me, are not really going to carry an attacking threat. Reece has not really done too well, and if Osmajic, he's going to be having a length ban due to him biting back, then it will certainly make things quite difficult for Preston. So I'm going to go 1-0 to Millwall. Let me know what you think in the comments. This is certainly a peculiar mashup. We have got Oxford going up against Burnley. Oxford with a flawless home run at this moment, same as Derby, which is why both of them are up there at the moment. And Oxford have not picked up a point away from home, but actually in all of their away defeats, they've only lost by the 1 goal. And that was the case last week as well against Bristol City. They really did give them a bit of a scare, and it was, I think, more or less down to Bristol City having a good response and eventually peppering Oxford with enough chances. Burnley, certainly a bit similar to Leeds, have just been chugging along. They've not been blowing the league away, and actually that's one thing I've noticed, really. I don't think we've got a team that's outright favourites really at the moment. It's been quite open and pretty close within the top 6. So ultimately, I do think it does put the pressure off a lot of them really at the moment. But certainly, it is going to scrutinise these one-off games that could throw a bit of a spanner in the works. And certainly with Watford picking up maximum points at home so far, that could really well be the case for Burnley, who are sitting themselves in 3rd place at the moment, and they could certainly be as high as first, actually, if results go their way. As a prediction here, gosh, it's really tough. I think Burnley certainly won't have a lot of the ball with this one. I actually think Oxford might have stronger and better chances. I think Burnley are so clinical. We saw how devastating they were against Luton, and then Cardiff as well. They were absolutely ruthless. I think we're going to see the same thing here. As a prediction, I'm going to go 2-1. I can't back Burnley to score many goals, but I do think this is going to be a really good game. I'm quite excited for this one, actually. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up, we got Portsmouth versus Sheffield United. I mean, the never-ending fixture list of doom for Portsmouth, it feels like at the moment. But for Portsmouth fans out there, I'll give you some bit of good news. After this game, in your next 10 games, you only have to play a team in the top half of the table twice. And that's a home game against Oxford and an away game against Blackburn. So that away game against Blackburn may be quite tricky, but who knows, by then Blackburn could revolt to the old Blackburn and not win games suddenly. So I do think after this game, which certainly is going to be like a band-aid, you know, you just want to rip it off and just get over it. I think then the fixtures start to ease up straight away. They have Stoke. I know they've got back-to-back games against Cardiff and Sheffield Wednesday. They are currently occupying in the bottom 3 themselves. So I do think the crunch games are coming out very soon for Portsmouth. And I think with this one here, it would be nice for them to get a point on the board. You know, they've only got 3 draws and 3 points so far this season. Sheffield Wednesday certainly would be looking at Sheffield United wanting to try and model what they're doing currently, because Sheffield United are looking very, very confident and really good at the moment. A bit similar to West Brom, I think really balanced, and I think certainly West Brom and Sheffield United have been my 2 standouts at this moment. And Sunderland deserve their own shout out, but I do think those two certainly look the most prepared to win games at a longevity period of the season. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-0, I think, away victory to Sheffield United. I can see them winning this one a bit comfortably, I'm afraid. Portsmouth have not scored many goals, but again, in their next couple of games, that is when crunch time starts for Portsmouth. And if they can't get wins out of that, that's when I'll start be having concerns. But let me know what you think in the comments. Last of the Saturday games sees Watford going up against Sunderland. This, I think, is a really good encounter. They were the two unbeaten sides in the first international break. Both have lost at least one game after that. And in fact, Watford are actually winless in their last 3, incurring 2 defeats in those 3 games as well. So Watford's really good start to the season is slowly deteriorating their way. But I do think performances are still suggesting that Watford are looking pretty strong as a whole. They can certainly offer a goal threat. I do think the period of rest is a bit different between these two because Watford did play in the Carabao Cup against Man City quite recently. Sunderland, going into this game, they went back into winning ways by beating Middlesbrough by 1-0. A very decisive goal by Chris Rigg. Brilliant moment for the youngster there. And I do think this game here is going to be really, really tight. I can see Watford dominating things on the pitch, but it's a question whether Sunderland can break and be clinical, which they've proven to be so many times. Prediction here is tricky. It feels like it will be a team that edges it by 1 goal, but who to go for? For some strange reason, I'm backing Sunderland here. I have a little bit more confidence about their forward play. I'm going to go for a 2-1 away victory to Sunderland, but I can really easily be wrong on this. Let me know what you think in the comments. The last game to conclude game week 7 is Swansea going up against Bristol City, which has offered a pretty interesting encounter in the past. Swansea, I've got to say, have been a bit of a surprise package so far this season. They're currently 7th place. Their form, certainly at their home games, is looking very confident and very strong at the moment. And I have seen a new Swansea side. A Swansea, past couple of seasons, certainly had performances in them, but they weren't consistent at all. And certainly, if they failed behind the game, they wouldn't have the confidence to back things up. But I think performances have really been going in the right direction for this Bristol City side. With Bristol City, they're currently sitting themselves in 13th place. I think I said 13th for Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough are actually 12th, but they're both on 8 points. And the reason why Middlesbrough are ahead, of course, is because of the goal difference. Since Bristol City did lose 3-0 to Derby not so long ago, and that's been a good example of actually some away games where Bristol City have had it wrong. They also lost 3-0 to Blackburn, which has caused most of the stress to their goal difference currently. But in their other away game as well, in the opening day of the season, they managed to get a draw against Hull, where they did take the lead in that game as well. So certainly their last 2 away games, Bristol City, have not been too encouraging, but I do think their forward play is looking a little bit more promising. Certainly we saw that with the comeback against Oxford United. They were certainly put under the pressure, but Naki Wells with kind of rolling back the years a little bit. I was thinking, oh, it's nice to see him scoring again. So I am seeing Bristol City improve things. But Swansea are looking very confident at the moment, and I don't think I can go past that. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to Swansea. Why not? You know, I don't normally back Swansea for a win, but I do think I'll back them this time round. I was annoyed I didn't back them for a win against Coventry, considering I very much said that Coventry do not have a good record against Swansea. I'm going to pay my respects to Swansea this time and give them the result I think they deserve. Let me know what you think in the comments. So just like that, guys, that is my week 7 predictions concluded. We've made it to game week 7 already. That's crazy how quickly the season is going. As always, guys, make sure you leave your predictions in the comments down below. Discord members have already seen my updated prediction league table. If I have the time, if I remember, I will show you the current prediction league table in all its glory, and I will be updating the table in the earliest opportunity to reflect last game week and this game week as well. As always, guys, please smash the like button. It really does help. Please do hit the subscribe button too, and please also share the channel as well. All 3 of these things are free to do, and it really do help. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys, I'll let you do over so in this video, and as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.